Okay now. Infinite Plane Saturn Day, January 25th, 2025. Live for about the next 90 minutes or so. And I believe I had somebody who wanted to call in, and they were leaving voicemails. So I'll go ahead and turn on phones immediately in case they get the signal. In case you got the penguin signal. I'm on the wrong keyboard. You know, I've got 3 keyboards in front of me. I wish they were color-coded. Joined by Diana South from DLive. Thank you for joining. First one in the raft. And anyone that does an auto-hoax, just push them overboard. Literally. No, not really. It's okay. You know, there's time to catch up. But we are in a quarantine right now. And we are in the process of refining our methodology for media fakery, breakdown, and the like. So I've been vindicated yet again. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but we have to point out the internal consistency of the world stage fictional universe, the overlapping of the fake news and the entertainment media, and our consistency. We're batting 300 here. I'm watching the #1 show on Netflix, making predictions about it, and it all comes true. But it gets even better. So, for example, I saw the shooter in Nashville wearing a shirt, and just based on the font, I said, hey, this has got to be Burzum, which is a tie-in to Kanye West. And this was based on an album called Vultures he put out, and somebody said that the aesthetics was similar to Burzum. It wasn't a literal Burzum shirt. Well, later he puts on a Burzum shirt, creates a separate controversy. But as I talked about in Solomon Henderson Metascripted Madness, this turns out to be part of the story. And not only does he mention Kanye West by name in his manifesto, but he's mentioned Candace Owens. And Candace Owens and West did the White Lives Matter before Ye went on his, quote, anti-Semitic spree. And White Lives Matter, of course, is sort of a, you know, it's not meant to be the same message as Black Lives Matter. It's a refutation of Black Lives Matter in a way. But the fact that they put it out there is really intriguing for a few reasons. We talked about the symbolism of it at the time. Ye and his Black Skinhead song. And this is all intriguing stuff when you get into the song, how far back it goes, and how it seems to forecast what he was going to do over the next 10 years with his career, with his life. The fall of Kanye West. And of course, in the manifesto, the shooter, Henderson Solomon, referred to death to the West. And I think it's all connected here. The Kardashians being emblematic of like peak Western degeneracy. And then the fall of his family, he said it was because of porn and Hollywood. There's a story here. But again, based on just on the shirt, I said there's going to be a Ye tie-in. And it brings in Candace Owens, brings in Nick Fuentes. And then, of course, he engaged in his killing spree. He only killed one person in himself because of what he came across on the internet, because of what he heard from Nick Fuentes and what he heard in the music of West and, of course, Owens. So all of that made me think it's a psyop. But now we get even more vindication with the Luigi Mangione character. I discussed the December 6th killing of Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, in the context of the wider media ecosystem. I presupposed that Netflix's #1 show would predictably foreshadow the next spate of incoming psyops. Life does not follow Netflix, however, fake news events do. When I saw the story of Luigi shooting the CEO with the 3D printed gun, and I recognized the inherent class warfare narrative, I instantly saw parallels to The Madness, again, the #1 show at the time. And here's a recent article that just came out from The Stranger. What if Luigi got away? And the subheadline here is, the subtitle is, a Netflix show dreamed up a Luigi Mangione 2 years before he killed the CEO. And then it asks, or notices rather, that Netflix has a crystal ball. On November 28, 2024, Netflix dropped a TV show whose creators appear to own something of a crystal ball. Watch and see for yourself. The series The Madness began pre-production in 2023, but it managed to see with eerie accuracy where the United States would be after the re-election of Donald Trump on November 5th, 2024. And as I said in my own analysis of this show, The Madness, I said this was forecasting. It was foreshadowing the role that Elon was about to take. He hadn't even ascended into the form that he's in right now at the time that the show was out. So this is not coincidental here. And this person is saying it's eerie, which is their usual go-to. The connection here is eerie. No, it's not eerie. It's predictable. And I'm not a psychic. I'm not a prophet. But like I said, we have been accurately making predictions about future news events based on Netflix. This shouldn't be possible. But it happens all the time. So to continue, it begins with the death of a neo-Nazi influencer, leader of the Forge. And this is Mark Simon, who's analogous to Nick Fuentes and America First. So the Forge equals America First. Recently, Nick Fuentes had an assassination attempt. Somebody showed up at his house. They killed some people across the street. The guy was on a killing spree. That's recent. Kind of a tie-in here. Quote, a good portion of the public think murder, talking about the assassination, Luigi killing the CEO. This is from the article. A good portion of the public actually think the murder was not a bad thing. And this is comparing it to the movie. In the movie, what's wrong with killing a social media hate monger? Someone who promotes the final solution for all races that are not white. Exactly. When Nick Fuentes was nearly assassinated, the news media ignored it. In fact, they didn't even call it an assassination attempt. They kind of downplayed it. They didn't want to make him look like a martyr because, of course, he had just been charged with assault for attacking a woman who rang his doorbell. And to gain sympathy for that, I think he was trying to play on the angle that they tried to kill him. And, of course, the news media ignored this. And, you know, just today, and let me see if I have a picture of it here. Just today, I was out on a walk and touching grass. And on a telephone pole, I saw a poster advertising class war, and specifically Luigi. Let me bring this up here. So this is the manifesto that was written on the shells. And if you recall, it led to a book, Deny, Defend, and Depose is what he put, an assassination term. But Deny, Defend, and Delay, I believe, is the title of a book about the corruption within the healthcare insurance industry, something that motivated Luigi to strike. Now, this is up on a telephone pole, and it says, no war but class war. And from the very beginning, I said this entire story is based on Joker. It's based on the class warfare narrative. I said this from the beginning, and as you can see here, this is organic on the street. Somebody posted it. I took this down, by the way. I have it here. I'm considering putting it on eBay, but I want to draw the character Luigi from Super Mario over this one. I want to add some stuff to it, some meta script. But let's get back into this, because I'm pointing out here that based on the class warfare narrative in The Madness, I said this is being superimposed onto this Luigi story. And then we had the Luigi lookalike contests, which are very similar to the Joker kill the rich movement, where they all put on the Joker masks. So we see these comparisons, these parallels, and the parallels are continuing here. In The Madness, the accused killer of the social media hate monger is protected in the neighborhoods where he seeks refuge. So not only does he kill this neo-Nazi, but in the working class neighborhood, nobody snitches on him. And here's what the writer of the piece wrote, quote, is this not what many fantasized, hoped, and prayed would happen for Mangione? He shows up in, say, Seattle. He's recognized and secreted to a comfy basement in Columbia City. Now, I've never fantasized, but I'm pretty sure on the left, a lot of people fantasized about him getting away. Quote, the fantasy captured by The Madness is about something that many Americans hope for in the murder of the healthcare CEO, common ground for all wage-earning Americans. So when I saw this murder, I didn't think, well, this should bring together people against the rich. But a lot of people did. A lot of people buy into the kill the rich or class warfare narrative based on envy. and on the idea that we're in a closed system and the only reason they're rich is because they exploited the poor, and the only reason you're poor is because they're rich. It's a real nasty worldview. But here's where it gets even more intriguing here. Because at the very beginning of this, we were talking about who this character is, how he's constructed. And a lot of people said he looked like Dave Franco, an actor. And I didn't know much about Dave Franco, but I said, I guarantee Dave Franco has some role that ties into the Joker, that ties into this bigger picture. And sure enough, he played the voice of the Riddler in this television show for in the Batman universe. But listen to this. Dave Franco trends after shooting suspect's mugshot goes viral. Dave Franco trends as Luigi Mangione sparks uncanny resemblance. And as we noted in our first discussion, many were comparing him to Dave Franco. And here's where the latest development comes in. Just today, this article came out on Entertainment Weekly. Dave Franco says everyone he knows wants him to play Luigi. He says, quote, I've never received more texts in my life about anything. And thanks to Mark Foley for tweeting this at me. So Entertainment Weekly has this article here where Dave Franco is being inundated with texts of people telling him that he needs to play Luigi. Hey, you need to play the guy that killed the CEO. You need to play the hero, the good guy, from their perspective, obviously. I mean, this is pure psychopathy, but it's normal. It's justified. This is not considered murder. He says, not just friends, anyone who has my phone number has reached out about it. Dave Franco heard your ideas about playing a certain person of interest, and he's overwhelmed. Fascinating. He hasn't received any official offers yet. When news of the arrest broke on December 9th, numerous spectators made comparisons between the suspect and Franco, so many, in fact, that he received his most popular week on Google searches in the past 5 years. However, in the event the saga does get adapted for TV, he's probably not the right pick because he's 39, the suspect is 26. Anyway, there you go. Another example here of this overlap, and of course, none of this stuff is coincidental. But what I was pointing out here too is that this article had made this exact comparison I've made between this movie and how it was eerily predictive of Elon Musk post-election. And I even said in my initial analysis that the billionaire has to represent Musk because he's funding the Nazis. And it's insinuated that he helped steal the election. And that is, in fact, what is being inferred right now about Musk and has been for some time. Okay, in other news, Joe Biden has been raised as a master Mason in the Black Masonic Lodge. It's the Prince Hall. And this is true. The Masons have a separate establishment for, it's essentially segregated in that sense. But anybody in the Masonic fraternity can join the Prince Hall. But the Prince Hall Masons can't go join the other ones. So it's kind of like somewhat segregated, except the ones from the regular lodges can join the other one. So it's not quite fair. So Joe Biden, inducted into the historically black Masonic Lodge, becomes a Master Mason. This is from Disclosed TV. I don't know if they did the whole ritual. Did they fake kill him and raise him from the dead? Or is this just some kind of a plaque? Joe Santos says, Musk did that Hitler thing and he looked like he did it his whole life. Well, you know what? The ADL had said that there's no big deal here. Nothing to see here. And this is not fair because how many people have been canceled over less? A lot of people. In fact, I got this link sent to me by, here we go. This conspiracy alarmist, Black Jews puzzled by ADL forgiving Elon. Yeah, this is intriguing here because it's a huge double standard. Like at this point, I'm going to be disappointed if we don't see Candace Owens doing the Roman salute. And Nick Fuentes, they should just do it. It's no longer offensive. I don't want to hear anything anymore about offensive numbers or haircuts like the bowl cut, hand signs. Like none of this stuff can be labeled offensive anymore because the most offensive of all things has just been flippantly disregarded. So here's someone responding to this glaring double standard. Let's see who this is. This is, yeah, that's right. Talking about Kyrie Irving.
Made him publicly apologize. Y'all got Kyrie Irving suspended and made him pay a donation to a Jewish organization. Y'all made Deshaun Jackson publicly apologize. Whoopi Goldberg, y'all got her suspended. Y'all tried real hard to cancel Kanye and make him lose his billionaire status. Even back in the 90s, you got Professor Griff kicked out of his own group, Public Enemy. But you let one of the richest men on the face of the planet perform one of the most, if not the most, anti-Semitic gesture. And you all have been silent, offensively silent. There have been no calls to cancel Elon Musk, no public outrage from the Jewish community, no...
Anyway, great points all around, major double standard. I no longer take these organizations seriously when they claim hate symbol. Because they said you can't do the AOK. They said you can't get a bowl cut. They said you can't use certain numbers, even the number 14. These are modern blasphemies. But now you can do that hand sign, and it's just overlooked. Like, okay, it's over. Nobody can claim to be offended. Okay, continuing here. Plot twist. Black Nashville high school shooter was inspired by Kanye West and more. Now, by sheer coincidence, I'm sure, I'm watching Amazon, and there's a commercial for Bill Maher's new show, and I recognized the soundtrack to the commercial, to his terrible jokes. And it was Black Skinhead, the song by Kanye West, which is an obvious Marilyn Manson Beautiful People ripoff. And I thought that's interesting, because that song was kind of in a subtext of the story, talking about the story of Kanye West adopting right-wing, fascist, white nationalist ideology, him and Candace Owens, which again inspired this character. So I had that song in my head, kind of thinking about that song in the context of this shooter, referencing Ye in his manifesto, which I didn't know, but I inferred Ye was involved by the shirt. And then I hear that song on Amazon. I don't think it's a coincidence. What if Luigi got away? TheStranger.com. Again, I went over that, and they're basically suggesting that if he made it to Seattle, they would have shielded him. You know, he would have been considered, I guess, a fugitive. I don't know. I mean, it's just like he's a hero to them. It's sickening, really. And the fact of it is, I don't believe the CEO died. To me, Luigi's just an actor on the world stage, totally scripted. This is a lifetime role. But people's responses to it are quite revealing. The fact that they don't know it's fake is immaterial here. So here's Candace Owens talking about the shooter that put her name in the manifesto. It's truly sickening that people would use the death of a young 16-year-old to score political points. Regarding the manifesto, it's an obvious troll. It's deranged. The individual plagiarized the same language from the Christchurch, New Zealand manifesto combined with other manifestos. It's a plagiarized document. Now, that doesn't surprise me. The Christchurch manifesto, Brenton Tarrant, shout out to PewDiePie, was plagiarized from Anders Breivik, the guy who shot up the Labour Party's children while they were swimming, fake story. And that was largely plagiarized, I believe, from the Unabomber. But if you look, they're all kind of interconnected and they reference one another. In fact, this shooter was doing poses like the other shooters, like intentionally to make the association. But the fact that these are plagiarized is because it's probably the same FBI agent, and what they're doing is they're taking all these manifestos, they're feeding them into ChatGPT, and they say, could you rewrite this one from the perspective of a black incel? And then you have the manifesto. Anyway, she goes on to say, it's plausible that both this is Candace Owens, it's plausible that both me and Mr. Beast, who do not share the same politics, wind up once again in a manifesto. Now, I didn't know Mr. Beast was in it. She calls it a deranged troll. No, I don't think so. I mean, he said he was inspired by her. It makes perfect sense. She is a black conservative who has a white supremacist ideology. She was there with Ye, with White Lives Matter, and the whole black skinhead narrative. She is 100% like the inspiration for him. It's internally, it's consistent. It's highly consistent. So the idea that she would try to weasel out of this, like, no, this is exactly what you inspire. Unbelievable. But she's always speaking out both sides of her mouth. But here's the shooter reportedly in contact. Okay, so he was in contact with her. The Wisconsin shooter. So the Wisconsin shooter, a female mass shooter, I didn't dig too deep into it. I guess I should have. I just saw the KMFDM shirt and the reference to Littleton, and I kind of overlooked it. I mean, I called it out a couple of years ago. I said, where are the female mass shooters? You know, if we're all being influenced by the same media to conduct the same crimes, if gun culture is hitting us all, then there should be an equal number of shooters, male and female. I thought it was a glaring oversight by the PSYOP entertainment complex, and thankfully, in the last few years, they've kind of balanced it. That now you're equally likely to get gunned down by a male or a female. Nashville shooter Solomon Henderson had contact with Wisconsin shooter Natalie Rupnow. That's her name, Natalie Rupnow. So not only was he copying her selfie, her pre-shooting selfie, but they were in contact with one another. What I would say here is they're part of the same movie with the same writers. That's my main takeaway. Here's an article from Glamour about The Madness by Netflix. You know, it's taken them months to figure this out. Notice, I talked about The Madness when no one was talking about it because it was a #1 movie, and I was projecting onto the future what was likely to occur because of the movie and all the stories and threads that have attached themselves to these major psyops. But now there's a lot of coverage saying, hey, this is just like Musk. This is what's happening now. But this is from glamour.com, a blurb, a pull quote. The Madness is a parable about modern warfare, truth and disinformation on the internet. The power with which powerful rich people can undermine entire systems, and the cloaks under which they operate. This is referring to Musk. The madness refers to the disease X, the mental madness, the mind viruses that incite the violence. That's what it's about. It's pretty blatant. By the way, the main character is Don Lemon, turned into this action hero. Nashville high school shooter's manifesto says Candace Owens influenced him. And note the word influenced in quotes. There's a connection here between the concept of the mind virus, which is a thought crime, but they've attached the language of epidemiology and pandemics to words and ideas. So when they say this person's an influencer, it reminds me of the Economist cover from Winter Solstice 2017, The New Shape of Chinese Power, and it has the spiked globe with red on China, and it looks like a COVID ball if you painted it all red. But it says the novel shape of Chinese power, or the novel. Let me bring up that cover actually. The New Shape of Chinese Influence. Sharp Power, The New Shape of Chinese Influence. So, new shape, novel shape, novel corona, obviously. So if you look at the cover, and this is from 2017, it's a COVID ball, but right now it's just sitting there in Wuhan, just stewing in some underheated bowl of bat soup. It hasn't fully erupted into a pandemic yet. But if you could imagine this red spot covering the entire spiked ball, what would you have? You would have a COVID, the symbol of COVID. But new shape, replace it with novel. Replace Chinese influence with Chinese influenza. And what do you have? The novel Chinese influenza. And of course, Sharp Power talks about the way it changed the power structure, the redistribution of wealth from the bottom up, etc. But getting back to here, Nashville high school shooter's manifesto says Candace Owens influenced him. So he caught her mind flu, her mind influenza. He caught mind viruses from her. Disease X. He caught the madness. Not a coincidence either that in a number of his photos, he's doing the Roman salute. Now, I'm sure he was just in a state of exuberance. He might be slightly autistic. But he did that a number of times in a number of photos, just like Musk. So the timing of Musk doing that, Musk, again, Disease X, the source of the madness, and him doing it, not a coincidence. Salty Siren says TikTok made him do it, the Chinese influenza. Yeah, actually, that's a good point. That's a really good point. Because he was a big TikToker. He had a lot of goofy TikTok videos. It's highly likely that you could make the case here. TikTok, he caught it there. I did a poll. Is Elon Musk a Nazi? And that's just because I refuse to be gaslit. He's going to come out goose-stepping and sig-heiling. And they're going to say, no, he was just being exuberant. Like, no, you're talking to me like I don't have my own perceptions. Like, I'm not outsourcing my perceptions. I'm going to call things like they are. But I'm just asking the question in a poll. I was curious to see what people would say. Looks like 30% said yes. 20% said yes. 20% yes. 30% said yes. 100% said yes. Of course, I rigged it. Like he supposedly rigged the election. And one commenter here said, no, but he's functioning autistic. And he might actually believe his childlike take on our universe. I'm not being sarcastic. People give him the benefit of the doubt. Do you believe that someone who's involved with either legitimate rocket science and sending people to Mars, or who's part of the PSYOP entertainment complex at a level where they're faking space, do you think someone like that is so out of control with himself that he would literally flail around and just make that hand sign? No, I don't think you should let them tell you to trust them and what they're saying and not your lying eyes. Like, this is just straight up gaslighting. Got a comment here. I'm trying to go through all the different video platforms, and if I miss any comments. So I am a werewolf said, nice work, never heard of the madness. We'll check it out. Yeah, again, if you watch the madness, Mark Simon is a combination of Stu Peters and Nick Fuentes. Lauren Jennings is Laura Loomer, who dies, by the way. They take her out with a nerve agent that approximates a heart attack, so look for Laura Loomer to die. The billionaire's Musk. There's 3D printed guns, CEO assassinated, and the people in the hood are protecting him. There's online Nazis financed by the billionaire who incites extremists, and he stole the election. Nice tie-in here with, of course, pretty much everything but the Luigi story. So if you want to watch it, it's on Netflix. A lot of people say, you know, you're always promoting Netflix. It's all propaganda. Like, well, no, it's not propaganda. It's not just propaganda. It's programming. You know, everyone has these Truman shows in their heads, but the Truman Show has a script. I like to read the script so I know what the dominant worldview is at that moment. It's called being situationally aware. And you have a choice. You can be misinformed with the masses, or you can be informed. And being informed is knowing what they believe, as well as knowing what isn't true. Or, third option, you can stay uninformed and not pay attention to any of it, which is the weakest position of all. Being uninformed in the info war, it's like going to battle without any ammunition. And I like to be informed. I like to know why I don't believe something. I don't flippantly say something's fake. Like with the shooting, I said, it's probably real, low body count. But then I saw the connections to Ye and to Owens and to Fuentes and all these other characters. And then I realized, okay, this is another one of these constructs. This is Earth OK says, you're rapidly becoming the only thing on the internet that's remotely watchable. Appreciate that. And we're not going away under any circumstances. Barth78 says 100% on track, Tim. Well, we are. What we're doing is we are elucidating the deliberate synchronization between entertainment and news, because the entertainment is all propaganda. And this gives us a bit of prescience. We know the foreshadowing, but it gives us, I think, a deeper level of interpretation. So here's the image from Donda Times that tipped me off about the story. So look on the right. This is the cover art for Vultures by Ye. And Donda Times said, it seems like Ye was inspired by Burzum, a Norwegian black metal music project founded by Varg Vikernes for the cover of Vultures because of the billionaire's role in radicalizing his own brother into political extremism. And I've been connecting this cyberspace contamination by disease X with Musk's contamination of low Earth orbit. And in recent weeks, there have been stories of space junk affecting flights, and Musk says it's mere entertainment. But this again reiterates what The Guardian said, that the madness is about the power of the very wealthy to disrupt entire systems. Low Earth orbit, cyberspace. Now here's a video. Some activists have projected the image of Musk with the salute and the word hail, and they put it right there, hail Tesla. So here's some activists reacting to it. The world's richest man promoting the far right in Europe, don't buy a Tesla, said led by donkeys. But yeah, there does seem to be some pushback here. Here's a video of it. It's Elon Musk on the side of his Tesla building. Now, this is a manufactured controversy, obviously. I'm just intrigued by the gaslighting aspect of it. Here's a video that's narrated by William Cooper. This was alluded to by a caller a little while ago. Salty said, media is space junk. Yeah, I like the concept of mind junk and space junk. These things are analogous. And they put these ideas out there to sell a concept on multiple levels. And the big picture here is the rich individual is the problem. The CEO is the problem. It's an appeal to the collectivists. It's an appeal to these political and economic systems that are more equitable. So capitalism, Musk is the end result of capitalistic greed, because now he's destroying space. He's destroyed cyberspace. He's brought Trump back into office, which is going to cause World War III and the end of the world and all that. Okay, so this is William Cooper talking about the JFK hoax assassination. Now, he thinks the guy really died, of course. And I don't fault people 10 years ago, 20 years ago, from falling for these things, from being somewhat literalist about what they see. The scale of the fakery wasn't understood at that time. But if you're here in 2025 and you're still reacting to what you see on the screen as though it's real, you're really, it's kind of sad at this point. It's like, okay, you can choose to be immersed in their Cywar if you want, but it's not the reality. The map is not the territory. The map is a distortion and always has been. But people get so addicted to their narratives, they have difficulty letting these things go, even when these things are really bad. Let me go ahead and play this clip.
In the car in which he was riding in Dallas on that day, and it was plainly visible in a film withheld from the public.
Now, you brought that film with you. Let's take a look at that if we can. Here's the film. Go ahead and narrate this for us, will you?
Well, it took me 16 years to find this film because it has really been withheld. And what you're seeing here is the motorcade on Elm Street passing in front of the book depository building. Kennedy has been shot in the throat, and Jacqueline is pulling him toward her, trying to comfort him, and she's in shock. At this time, you see the driver turn around with a pistol in his left hand, firing over his right shoulder, and shoots the president directly in the head.
This is what the caller was referencing. He heard it on Cooper first. He's correct about that. And it does indeed look like that. It does. But it also looks like Jackie shoots him in the head, and then she crawls on the back to get his brain. Or it looks like he's a dummy, and she pulls a string to activate the squib, and it explodes, and she grabs the squib can. There are so many interpretations of it. I haven't heard much about this JFK release. I know the family's against it. RFK is for it. They hate RFK. But the thing I want to see released is I want to see the video, the home video Jackie Kennedy filmed on 9/22/1963, 2 months before the assassination. I want to see the home video where the Secret Service and Jackie pretended to kill JFK and had him dead on the floor, covered in Heinz ketchup. There's a 16-minute home. It's not a horror film. It's a James Bond inspired thriller. But I want to see that. To me, that tells us more about what we're looking at than anything. Apparently, she was into film. Apparently, I mean, the most likely director of this event was Stanley Kubrick. Kubrick shot Kennedy. Wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald. There's plenty there to attach to it. I'm working on a IPS deep dive on Kubrick and the psyops that he presumably directed and why I think it matters. Because a lot of people are focused on Stanley Kubrick and Apollo 11, but they totally missed the 9/11 stuff. And if you don't connect these things, the fake space and the fake news on the ground, then you're still 1 foot in the matrix. Okay, so I got a interesting comment I want to address here. This came from Lynn, and this is a common response to our take on the news. Because I'm looking at the news as history in the making. It's a story. It's his story. It's Big Brother's story. It's written in advance. There's nothing you can do about it. You can call it fake. You can laugh at it. You can expose it. Doesn't matter. Your perspective is going to be erased. Theirs is going to be carved in stone. Or yours will be drowned out. But here's what she had posted here. All this stuff about Abaddon and Apollyon, why wrap the intrigues of gangsters in purple silk and disguise the stink of shakedowns with frankincense? People do this to mystify, idealize, romanticize, and lend spiritual substance to plain old mob extortion and racketeering. They glamorize the petty corruption, blackmail, and bribery as symbolism and performance ritual. I'm not impressed. The only thing new about any of this is the global media tech big deal. Who would imagine that today's cultural radicals are nothing more than critics of film, pop music, and media trash? And I do say that we are in Mystery Science Theater 3000, where the aliens kidnap these individuals and force them to watch bad sci-fi until they go crazy. That describes us. But they don't go crazy because they mock what they see. They throw popcorn at the screen. So yes, we are in fact mainly focused on this mass media monolith as something of a movie, and we are the world stage's greatest critics, worst critics. They probably hate us. We probably make them feel insecure. She said, I guess it's safer to focus on this and entertainment. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. It remains a gangster planet with a mobbed up administration, and we are subsidizing it. So I would just say that this opinion was valid a few years ago, but now it's null and void because we have to subtract a lot of stuff from the entire premise here. Nukes are fake. I mean, sure, there is something of a shakedown. There is a power imbalance. There is a knowledge disparity. There is a power elite and a brainwashed multitude. That's true. We have been conquered. There is a one world view, a one world religion. We all do live in the state established paradigm. That's true. But I don't know if it's bad news. And a lot of the stuff that is referenced here, I think it's largely theater. Like, I like to emphasize that the PSYOP entertainment complex is what controls this place. They control us from the minds out. They don't need to control your bodies with jackbooted thugs and chains and whips when they can control you through your mind with drugs and news and media and drama. Theater, theater as a weapon of mind war. And that's where we're at. That does describe the scenario. So it makes no sense to run around trying to raise an army or trying to do what Antifa does to fight the system physically. No, the people who are doing that are in no shape to take on what the structure really is. They're falling for all these psyops, which turn them into LARPers. Another point here, we're dealing with the true believers in the media programming. So, like, who are you going to organize? Like, good luck organizing controlled opposition stooges. Anyone who fell for January 6th, anyone who falls in line with any controlled opposition anti-position, they've internalized the Truman Show programming. It's like trying to get mental patients organized to take over the asylum. Let's say you manage to get a lot of mental patients to organize and take over. They beat up the orderlies, and now they control the building. Well, they're still mental patients. They're in no position to assert control over themselves or take over anything outside of the asylum. And that's the position we're in. I'm not saying it's dire. I'm saying it's futile. Resistance is futile. Everything's under control. You have no foothold to organize the people who are alt media. Now, if you want to organize people who understand what's going on, you have to go outside of the mainstream media box, and that's what we're doing. But our position here is popcorn, not ammo. Inactivism, conscientious objection, and applied skepticism. To me, sitting back and criticizing the world stage movie in depth, at the subtext level, at the level of the metascript, how they're painting the zeitgeist, looking at the bigger themes, the symbolism, the interconnectedness, the provable synchronization between entertainment and future fake news. To me, that is far more valuable. It's becoming informed than running around with a panicked mob, hitting Q pipes, drinking the Kool-Aid from Alex Jonestown. So no, we're the only ones doing this correctly, in my opinion. But if you want to find a panicked mob to run with, there's plenty of scared people, high on their red pill supply. And red pill is all fear programming. And honestly, none of this stuff scares me. I'm not scared of drones. I'm not scared of aliens. Milwaukee CBS weather reporter Sam Kuffel fired after criticizing Elon Musk's Nazi salute on Instagram. So you can do a Nazi salute and the ADL gives you a pass, but if you criticize the guy doing the Nazi salute, you lose your job. Makes perfect sense. This double standard just means that you no longer have to care what they say. Be offensive. They can't claim to be offended. A local meteorologist who worked for Milwaukee CBS was fired from her job when she denounced him as a, quote, Nazi for his controversial arm gesture. Dude, Nazi saluted twice during the inauguration. Full stop. Screw him, he's a Nazi. So, okay, she's no longer employed at CBS 58. Funny. Okay, moving on here. Been a very interesting week. We've talked about bleeding robots, robots that cry, robots that bleed. The JFK files, huge letdown. Gondola Wish says, have you ever looked into the eye ointment they put into newborns? I heard this is referred to as veils, and it interferes with our perception of reality. No, I have not. Although JLB suggests that ultrasound has dumbed us down. Like, that's interesting. Like, find a group of people who haven't had that in some part of the world where they don't have access to medical care and see if it's just like a village of geniuses. Like, I don't know if I accept that premise. Let's Go says, sorry, Lynn is rough. Well, look, Lynn Ertel is an MSM pluser, admittedly. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but the mainstream box MSM refers to mainstream mediation, the big picture as presented by state media that both sides agree on. Now, they have different opinions about it, but they all agreed this is real. Within that box, you have two subsets. You have Woketown and Trutherville. These take the MSM view and add on to it. They're what I call MSM plus. So the media is lying. So you take the story and you add on what they're lying about, the conspiracy theories, and you have more information. So conspiracy theorists are more informed than the normies. But the information they have is all lies and fear porn. And they're addicted to it. So MSM Plus is a subset of the mainstream, and the mainstream view is invalid. It doesn't acknowledge its own fakery. Therefore, the mainstream media plus version is even faker and less valid. The only valid position to take on any of these issues is MSM minus, which is the subtractive route, which means you subtract from whatever they're reporting anything that cannot be verified as factual with evidence. You just subtract it. And if you cannot find evidence to support it, you're not obliged to believe it. And I find that informed non-belief makes a lot more sense than being a believer in stuff that you can't prove. This is a world of manipulated believers. That's what makes this thing work. We have to move away from being believers and followers and replace that with skeptical seekers and knowers. So I may not believe what you believe, but I know why I don't believe it. But I think it's what we're seeing here, it's a cultural thing. So the alternative media culture, anti-establishment, anti-media has always been somewhat orthodox. Like their position is whatever's mainstream, I'm against it. But they accept the big premise that the world's in trouble, but these guys are at fault. So they're in a different worldview. And conspiracy theorists have always been more agitated because they believe that things are worse and the media is hiding how bad it is. Everything is more dire to them. It's a doomsday version of events. And I've taken the position lately that the Trutherville is controlled by the same people that give us Woketown. And if you follow these narratives all the way to the very their conclusions, you arrive at this political horseshoe where one group blames whites for everything: critical race theory, systemic racism, capitalism, individualism. They have their criticism that explains the world and why it's wrong, and that's Woketown. Woketown looks at the mainstreamers and is like, these people aren't woke. They're asleep. Then the Trutherville is like, no, we're awake because the red pill. Everyone else is asleep. And they're awake to who controls the world. But for them, truthers don't say whites control the world. They don't believe in systemic racism. For them, it's Israel. It's Jews. So they're like, it's critical race theory and critical Jew theory. And they have different scapegoats, but they have the same grievance politics and the same scapegoat, or the same type of organization around a scapegoat, and that their entire narrative is about we must overcome this bad guy. But these are controlled positions. They're both fake, and both of them miss the big picture by design. So Trutherville is entirely invalid. There are no positions you can take in Trutherville that are valid because it all presupposes the literal existence of everything on the news. They don't disbelieve anything. So it's important to get past that. And fakery is the norm, not the exception. The PSYOP entertainment complex is what rules this place. It is the main, it is the PSY war. It is the PSYOP entertainment complex isn't a force multiplier. It's not like they use some fakery to trick us sometimes. Like, oh, they put some inflatable tanks to trick the Russians to win the war. No, that's kind of an inversion of how it works. Fakery is the norm, not the exception. The military-industrial complex, the idea that there's this inevitable war that we're going to have that's like World War III and everything's going to shut down. No, that's a figment of the PSYOP entertainment complex. It's a story they put out there to scare us. It's a doomsday story. And doomsdays are very, very good for organizing societies. I mean, look at climate change. Climate change is a doomsday scenario, and it empowers government to regulate, to tax, to tithe. Look what it's done to culture, how it turns an entire segment of society against consumerism, capitalism, and against it's a political position more than anything. But it's all presupposing the idea that if we don't change our ways, Gaia is going to punish us all. Left-wing activists beamed a massive image of Elon Musk's infamous raised arm salute and the word hail. The gesture, made by Tesla and SpaceX CEO Musk on Monday, the day of the inauguration, drew comparisons drew comparisons to the Nazi salute. So it's a 9-meter tall factory where they projected it. Let's see if there's anything else here about the shooter. A little more details here about the shooter. Again, they say that he was in contact with the female shooter, Natalie Rupnow. Solomon Henderson, 17-year-old who shot himself dead after murdering the 16-year-old, had ties with Rupnow, 15-year-old. This is insane. Rupnow appears to have... She also killed herself, too. How convenient, right? You never get to hear from them. You have to go by their manifestos. And I still contend that if these were real events, you wouldn't have the manifesto the next day or 5 minutes later. That's just too convenient. But from a law enforcement perspective, investigating a homicide, the idea that we have all these intimate details and social media accounts of minors, it's all very sketchy to me. But Rupnow had been following Henderson online before she died. Before he also shot up his Christian school 600 miles from her. Now note the word Christian here, because school shootings in the past, prior to Audrey Hale, were all right-wing, neo-Nazi, MAGA-friendly shooters who did so because they were racist. That was like the main story. It was racist, it was misogynist, it was, gun-toting right-wingers killing people. Now, it's become, ever since Audrey Hale, a lefty thing. Now, instead of right-wingers radicalized by Discord and 4chan, it's left-wingers radicalized by Reddit. And it's trans activists, or like Audrey Hale. They throw that in there, and then they have them attacking Christians. So they're making the point that now the shooters are left-wing, and they're going after Christian children. And the reason for this plot twist is that the right wing didn't care about mass shootings in the schools. They said, we don't care, we want our guns. But now that the guns are going after their own children in Christian schools, and they tie in the satanic panic element and the culture war stuff, now they care. So these two shooters connected, shooting Christian schools, yeah, that's meant to trigger the right wing into giving a damn about mass shootings. It's also why they had them shoot up the fake shooting in Vegas and Borderline Bar and Grill. And there was another one, I think it was called the Garlic Festival or something, where they have these country music shows getting shot up. And the reason for this, again, is to involve the right wing. Because, of course, country music, America, flags, guns. Hey, look what your Second Amendment got you. It's not just the schools anymore. Okay, let's continue here. Again, if you leave comments on any of my video platforms, I'm making it a point to comb through. I'll screen cap it, I'll put it on my minds, and I'll address it. I've been getting a lot of interesting comments that I just haven't been keeping up with. Main points of interest. Others have noted the significance of Jennifer Aniston having an affair with Barack Obama and its connection to Leave the World Behind, produced by the Obamas, which had a lot of connections to the show Friends. Others have even further made connections between Rachel Chandler, I think that's her name, Rachel and Friends, and who was that? Was it Chelsea? Who was the one who died on camera and it was really kind of fishy? Was it Chelsea Handler? There was someone who had died. No, it was someone who died. They crashed their car, and it was like very public. But it was it a Rachel? I gotta get the Friends. I haven't watched Friends. Rachel Green. But there's some interesting connections people have been making. I don't know what to make of it all yet, but I don't think any of these things are coincidental. And Leave the World Behind is another example of a movie that predicts, not only does it predict and with great specificity foreshadow a lot of what followed, but the media even had to acknowledge these eerie coincidences. Like, it's a big deal when the media acknowledges it. Now, of course, they downplay it. They downplay it as eerie coincidence. All right, let me scroll through my Twitter feed. Video, unhinged leftist, that's kind of a redundancy, calls for the assassination of Trump, says it'll be pardoned. Quote, we're going full-blown Lincoln, full-blown Kennedy right now. Again, this is a lefty. I would consider this to be...
need you right now.
Now, I want to point something out, too. This is not a crisis actor. Nick Fuentes is a Poe, a parody of extremism. Candace Owens, parody of extremism, pose. These far-right figures like Stu Peters, who espouse these crazy ideas, these psychotic ideas, they don't really believe the stuff. They don't believe the stuff that they're saying. But on the left, they do. So I don't mean to make these equivalencies between left and right because they're not the same. It's structurally, it's designed this way. It's a bifurcated system. But I think you could argue that the left is objectively crazier, and it makes sense because they side with the mainstream. They side with the media. They side with the dominant worldview. Oh, there's Anne Hesh who had been killed in that way. Anne Hesh, or whatever happened. It was a weird story because it's like she crashes into a garage, and they see her backed out, and she seems to be jumping up off of the gurney. Very strange story, but there have been some strange QAnon threads connecting this to Rachel from Friends to Jennifer Aniston. I'll have to look. But anyway, this person's calling for assassination. And I don't think they need to hire people to do this stuff. I think you can find people on the left, like I find there are mainstream leftist podcasters who are mad that Luigi isn't being put on the cover of the New York Times. Like they won't put his face on there. I'm finding many blogs who are basically saying, well, we don't agree with murder, but. Gonzalo Wish says, they say Chandler is short for child handler, according to Q lore. Yeah, okay, Q lore. And I don't know. I mean, I would take the Q lore seriously if they had rescued a single child, but their child trafficking, traffic children rescuer, I mean, it's so convoluted. You got Tim Ballard, who supposedly, and this is Sound of Freedom, is rescuing trafficked children being charged with human trafficking. So I'm like, well, who's trafficking who? And whatever happened to save the children? All those children who were being trafficked by the deep state for their adrenochrome, what happened to them? Nobody saved them? Did they grow up and vote Democrat in 2020, 2024? Like, they're just not being rescued, and the QAnoners aren't even looking anymore. When the QAnon disease first started spreading, the afflicted would say to me, don't you want to save the children? I'm like, yeah, but, well, what are you, a pedovore? It's like, okay, fine. Trust the plan. Let's save the children. But now, they don't have any such clout. They can't be claiming that they're interested in saving children because they haven't saved any. But they all paid to watch a movie to support Tim Ballard, who is a literal human trafficker. Okay, let's continue. Vinegar versus chemtrails. You know, I've been saying for some time that the chemtrail people boil vinegar to clear the skies. And some hardcore chemtrail believers said that no, these are just trolls, that they're just misrepresenting the issue. No, this is a Twitter account called Vinegar Blue Sky. And this is a compilation of people boiling vinegar on their grills and then claiming that they have caused the trails in the sky to dissipate. I'll just play a few of them. There's 20 minutes here.
I was skeptical. Got the vinegar on. There's the bottle. Right above us. Clear. It was hazy, like what you see over there in the distance, in that upper atmosphere. An hour after putting it on. How in the world does that happen? That's how it happens.
It's 7:30 in the morning, and here in North Georgia, they're at it already. Past 2 days have been beautiful and sunny. As you can see, they're trying to do it with the chemtrails, but I've got my setup going.
Okay, so here she has her grill and she has all these different jars of vinegar. I want to note that it's very early in the morning, much cooler, probably cold, which might explain the cirrus clouds, but she says it's chemtrails. So now she does this thing, there's a time lapse, and the sky does clear up by afternoon. Take a look.
Right here. I've turned them all in towards each other, the openings, so that the wind can't blow it out.
Now, this is a common thing. This has been going on since Ron Paul supporters would use squirt bottles and spray at the sky.
And they will be going strong today. It's 9:30 in the morning. They can try. But you see the sun? I love it.
Her voice cracked when she said, "You can see the sun." Not all heroes wear capes. She saved the day. It's like, no, I think the temperature had something to do with the stratospheric cirrus clouds dissipating. Far more than your jar of vinegar on the ground in front of you. You know, I knew this Wiccan once who said that she could point at a cloud and cause it to go away. And she apparently did it with regularity. But I found myself wondering, if she wasn't pointing at it, would it still go away, or would they have still been there? Like, if this person didn't put the vinegar out, would those clouds have remained? And obviously the answer is no. They would have gone away anyway. So what you're seeing here is the fallacy called faulty causality. Crow 77777 falls for this, which blows my mind. And I'm interested in this because I want to know if any truthers out there can tell the truth about this particular issue when they find it out, or are they going to stick to their explanation? Like, can they admit they've been tricked? I will admit if I've been tricked. And if you can't admit to yourself that you fell for a faulty causality, that, you know, A happens before B, therefore A caused B. Not true in every instance. But falling for this is nothing to be ashamed of, but you should at least recognize and say, hey, look, to my 200,000 subscribers, I've misled you. Boiling vinegar has nothing to do with that. You could just as easily say that the sun is going to set because I'm pointing at it. It's going to set anyway. So no, this isn't evidence of anything other than a logical fallacy. Here's somebody in Belgium doing it. It's all over the world. There are people doing this. I'll play one more. It's a beautiful day. They're looking at these beautiful clouds like it's problematic. Like, I don't know. I think chemtrails, contrails, the lines in the sky, I think they're actually kind of beautiful in a way, if you think about it. You're talking about evidence that man can fly, which is kind of a new thing. And the engines are just so hot, the exhaust is so hot that it affects the altitude at what, 20, 30,000 feet, certain temperatures. It just happens to cause these persistent trails. You know, it affects these the atmosphere in such a way that it's visible. You got a trail, but it's like snow angels. You know, it's a mark that we pass. It's a trail, nothing more. But the idea that it's nefarious is what I'm disputing here. And a lot of people believe these things are nefarious. They're scared of them. And that fear can cause psychosomatic illness. You can die from chemtrail lung, even if there's no such thing as chemtrails, if you believe in it hard enough. How hard do you believe in it? And I think a lot of these truthers are like Richie from Boston. He's got this gravelly voice. He's got vocal fry from chemtrails. And I think he gave it to himself psychosomatically because he believes so wholeheartedly that he's inhaling barium and aluminum and nanobots. And he's talking about it. Anyway, here's another vinegar boiler.
They're trying to do their thing directly above, but you'll notice it's just dissipating straight away. probably because of my intention and the huge amount of negative ions that we're sending up there.
Okay, so it's not just the negative ions sent from his vinegar, but it's his intentions. So he believes that he is mentally preventing this plane from leaving a trail. No, it's because it's a little bit warmer. There is a trail, but it's not persisting. And one thing they never ask themselves, what's the volume of chemtrail juice required to leave a trail for 50 miles for 100 miles? Salty says, yeah, Tim, but these aren't reasonable people. Yeah, that's kind of what we're dealing with. We're dealing with believers, and believers don't need reason. So what we're confronting here with the mediated, the Truman Show dwellers, is faithful believers who put faith over reason, like you would in religion. And I do argue that mainstream media has become a de facto state church. It is the religion. I'm an atheist to their God constructs, and I'm not a believer. I think that reason and logic is superior to falling for ridiculous, I would almost say limiting, if not self-destructive beliefs. Simmering vinegar with tea light oil diffusers works best, but it's the negative ions that vinegar produces. So here's the science behind this. Vinegar vapor strongly ionizes the air around it, creating charged particles. They gain quite a lot of energy and they rise upward in a chain reaction. They have higher energy compared to the surroundings and can ionize huge amounts of air in a chain-like fashion. Once this chain reaction reaches the cloud that was created by artificially spraying condensed nuclei, the water droplets around them become charged and the water evaporates into a gaseous state without droplets falling to the ground. The artificially high clouds dissolve and you can even mitigate spray-assisted thunderstorms. All you need is a few liters of vinegar. So if you have a little bit of vinegar, you can stop a thunderstorm. Good to know. Anthony Cumia is worried about Haktua. He says, this girl fell off the face of the earth after the meme coin debacle. Any ideas on what happened to her? I have an idea about her. I don't think she ever existed. There's not enough content of this person for me to believe she's real. And I'm thinking this is an AI-generated talking meme from day one. And she was always going to be a meme coin rug pull from day one. They invented a character, made her go viral. Everybody who helped is a stakeholder in her coin. She releases the coin, they make millions of dollars, and then they just delete the files. She no longer exists. We talked about this earlier. Metascript breakdown on Luigi Vindicated. What if Luigi got away? A Netflix show dreamed up a Luigi Mangione 2 years before he killed the CEO, by Charles Moodid. Isn't that interesting how Netflix is often referred to as having dreamed things up, having predicted with their crystal ball? Here's a quote from Robert Anton Wilson. The world is not governed by facts or logic. The world is governed by BS, belief systems. Robert Anton Wilson is, or was, a philosopher, but he wrote for, I believe, Playboy magazine. He did some science fiction, conspiracy genre books. He wrote the Illuminatus trilogy. I think he popularized the concept of Illuminati in conspiracy circles in a lot of ways. But Robert Anton Wilson wrote quite a bit about how interchangeable belief systems are and how arbitrary they are, and why it's important to ensure that you're not holding on to a belief system that limits your, what he called, reality tunnel. And interestingly enough, I happened to be reading one of his books called The Cosmic Trigger when I watched The Truman Show in the theater. And because of his book, I was very receptive to the ideas in the Truman Show's subtext, Sirius, the Dog Star, and the esoteric side of it, because Robert Anton Wilson wrote extensively about the Dog Star and its significance within the various magical, or I guess you would call them mystery school traditions, Freemasonry, for example, and their emphasis on the Dog Star. And again, if you've seen the Truman Show, he's in the illusion. He's a programmed NPC until the Dog Star falls. A stage light falls that says Canis Majoris. And that glitch in the Matrix is what causes him to break his entire programming. The book, The Cosmic Trigger, is about the Dog Star being, quote, the cosmic trigger, because in his book he maintains the idea that our mental and psychological evolution is being precipitated. Our change in consciousness is actually being beamed to us through some signals being sent from the Dog Star. That's the premise of the cosmic trigger. So it's notable that Jim Carrey's character is awakened to this illusion by the falling Dog Star. And this is a theme that follows Jim Carrey through multiple movies and different roles. I believe he's a dog catcher in The Number 23. The movie, The Number 23, about a book where the author is describing how the number 23 has led him down this trail. And all these synchronicities of the number 23 begin to infect Jim Carrey's character. Well, the book, The Cosmic Trigger, is in large part about the number 23 and synchronicities that the author had. So I would even say that, and it's not explicitly stated, but the Jim Carrey movie, The Number 23, is actually about the book, The Cosmic Trigger. Yeah, exactly, Joe Santo. I'm glad you brought that up. Like the movie Sim 1 with Al Pacino. So if you haven't seen Sim 1, it's Simone. Simone, S1M0NE. Great movie, Al Pacino. This is about a film producer who creates an actress, complete deep fake. Fools everybody. Nobody knows that she doesn't exist. I guess it says it's satire here. 2002 American satirical science fiction film. It follows a fading director who creates a virtual actress to star in his films. And he tries to keep her non-presence a secret as she becomes more famous. And this is what I think we saw with the meme girl there, the Hawk Tua girl. I think it's plausible that she was a computer-generated woman, animated, a virtual actor. She was given some podcast roles, but I kind of think her face and her demeanor might have even been templated off of Marjorie Taylor Greene. Did anybody else get that feeling? Great movie, though. And this came out in 2002. I mean, this is way ahead of its time. How many people, how many actors, how many musicians have we been following over the years who don't actually exist? Mick West had an excellent tweet here. Mick West, obviously he's a gloober. He's probably a shill. Who knows? But he is a skeptic of conspiracy theories, so people think he's one of them. But I think he's a clear thinker, even though he's wrong about a lot of things. But I know why he's wrong. He's wrong because he's in the Truman Show. That doesn't mean that he doesn't make valid points. And his criticisms of ufology are valid. He's consistently auto-hoaxing the entire UFO genre. The problem with him is that he doesn't apply the same level of skepticism to NASA footage. You see, that's how compartmentalized it is. But here's an excellent tweet by him. He says, "This is how UFO circular storytelling works." It says here, somebody predisposed to believe conspiracies hears a story about a large object underwater. He tells it to someone else who's similarly inclined, who tells it to Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz tells it to his audience. It goes on, no evidence, they don't have it, it's all stories. So there's this story, some Navy guy said that they saw some object at the ocean, very deep, moving at a speed that was impossible for any known craft. Well, if true, he only would have seen it on his radar. It wasn't with his eyeballs. So it could have been a simulation, whatever. But this story has been repeated and repeated and repeated. So many people are talking about it, people assume something is true about it. I hear this a lot. Like there are people who say, I don't believe in the space station, but a lot of people have seen a light in the sky, so I believe it. Well then, do you believe in Bigfoot? Do you believe in gnomes? Like what don't you believe in if that's your standard? But here's Matt Gates says, he's talking to Representative Tim Burchett, who says, an admiral told me there's a documented case about an object the size of a football field moving underwater. Sonar operators told me they move hundreds of miles per hour underwater. I think they have bases underwater. Let's just play it short.
Concepts that you were laying out.
I do when I've talked to people or their sonar people, and the way they hide it from us, Matt, they say it's because our sonar, I believe, I haven't been briefed on this. I'm just from what I'm putting together, but we have some secrets.
So what he heard from somebody else, he's just kind of piecing it together. But this is the point. The point is, there is no substance to the story. It's stories being passed down to other people who've heard these stories, and they all find it plausible, but the main thing that connects them is they want to believe. That's why there was a drone panic. People want to believe. And believers have a bias. They want it to be true. That's why believers and knowers are two different groups of people. These are qualitative differences. Knowers want to know the truth, which means they have to accept non-belief and whatever information they can have. They have to accept agnosticism, skepticism, the suspension of judgment. But believers don't have the patience to suspend judgment. They get the slightest evidence that supports what they want to believe, and they believe it. I call this like maybe Bigfoot logic. I talked about this before, but there's these two individuals that I know of that were camping, and one of them believed in Bigfoot, the other did not. During the night, they both heard noises. One of them said, we heard noises, I think it was probably a squirrel. And the other one said, no, it was Sasquatch. Okay, well, the problem with the second person statement here is that if there's a multiple choice question about noises that you hear in the woods, the multiple choice would be something like squirrels, deer, raccoons, and other hikers. A, B, C, D. Bigfoot does not get included in your multiple choice because Bigfoot hasn't been proven to exist. You don't start off with the premise that maybe Bigfoot could be there. Similarly, until you can prove the existence of the space station, any light in the sky has to be figured out. You have to conclude that it must be an airplane, a helicopter, maybe a drone, but it's one of those things until proven otherwise. You can't just say, well, it might have been a UFO. Maybe it's Bigfoot on a UFO. Maybe it was Bigfoot on the space station. No, you don't get to add in a maybe. That's a non sequitur fallacy. You have to start with what's already been proven to exist before you reach for some supernatural explanation. But those who have a desire to believe in something will include things that shouldn't exist, that they want to exist. They will, their bias leads them. Robert Anton Wilson, we just referenced, had this axiom. He said, what the thinker thinks, the prover proves. You set your cognitive bias, you will fill it in. You will find information to bolster that. You start off with a model. You'll find evidence to support it, and you'll exclude that which does not. This is why it's important to not lead with a conclusion, but follow the facts. And if the facts don't support a story, you have to reject the story. But let's listen to these two for a moment more, talking about their hearsay and throwing up enough words, enough conjecture to make it seem like there's something there.
Sonar. But what's so crazy about it, like we're hiding it from the Chinese. Well, heck, Matt, the Chinese sold us the components for it. They know it's in our sonar probably better than we do. But when they tell me something's moving at hundreds of miles an hour underwater, and our capabilities are, I don't think we have anything to do 40 miles an hour, and these things This one was large as a football field underwater, and this was a documented case. And I have an admiral telling me this stuff.
So an admiral told him. So yes, that's again hearsay at best. Hearsay. And interestingly, Matt Gaetz grew up in the house where they filmed the Truman Show. Truman Burbanks. Here we go. Matt Gaetz' $2.7 million childhood home played a starring role in the Truman Show. Matt Gaetz' family owns the home from the Truman Show. The house with the white picket fence where Jim Carrey had his awakening. And the Truman Show is the mental model that you internalize, that they give you, their programming, their scripts, their liars. And Truman was in this closed system, and everybody was lying to him. Everything was scripted and fake. But as long as he believed the lies, he couldn't see it. But he became a non-believer. He started becoming skeptical when it started to glitch out on him. I'm not quite sure the significance here of Matt Gaetz and the Truman Show thing, but just it came up here. What's up, Marcel? Thanks for joining. Well, there's plenty more to talk about. We will be live tomorrow. Joe Biden's now a master Mason. I guess that's significant. He's a Prince Hall Mason. I'm curious if they put him in the coffin, because the master Mason ritual is the one where they put you in a coffin after they simulate your murder by 3 individuals. You get killed for the master Mason is playing the role of King Solomon's architect. Solomon has been in the news. Henderson Solomon, that name has been in the news. But the Mason is symbolically killed because he's protecting King Solomon's blueprints, trade secrets from the 3 ruffians. And it's King Solomon who's portrayed by the worshipful master who opens the coffin and raises the initiate from the dead. So again, Joe Biden was raised to Master Mason. I would have believed he already was one. Although he's Catholic, and some say there's something of I don't know if there's a prohibition or if they're mutually exclusive, but I think Catholics have their separate organization. Separate but analogous. We mentioned William Cooper before, and Behold a Pale Horse has a number of initiation oaths from various groups that you can compare and contrast, and it's fascinating how similar they all are. Oath Keepers founder Stuart Rhodes visits Capitol Hill after Trump clemency. A lot of these J6ers are walking free. Has somebody reported the QAnon shaman to PETA? Like, where to get all his animal skins? And I don't know why he's not still in jail. He ran into the Capitol with a spear. If anyone deserved to be in. But people are acting like it's a win. Like, oh, they got free. Trump liberated them. It's like, are you kidding me? These are all actors. But I think this one's interesting. This is Stuart Rhodes. He's got the eye patch. Not sure the significance of it, but conspicuous here. Just another Fed, another provocateur. I've been slightly following the story with John McAfee returning to the dead, but now he's just pushing crypto. So I think it's fake. Some are saying that John McAfee has been showing up at Trump rallies as Brickman. Brickman being the character who shows up at all the Trump rallies in a suit covered in bricks. They're saying that's John McAfee. Joe Saunders says, aliens are a great cover for the elite coming up with new technologies. Well, I think the alien invasion scenario is simply a story. Kind of like Rapture. It's an eschatology. It's an end of the world type story. But I also think there's a deeper meaning to it. The grays. Black and white, the dialectics merge into gray. And alien invasion would represent, I think, the embrace of the other. It's about open borders, the one world, the illegal alien invasion ubiquitously invading all other countries. And I say the word invading meaning no more borders. And there's a reason why the right wing has been positioned to fear aliens. They got Space Force because they're scared of aliens. They build the wall because they're scared of illegal aliens. This attitude on the right with regard to outsiders and the need to have borders is the opposite of the left wing, which is embrace the aliens and open the borders. Not a coincidence that for months now, almost a year now, Tucker Carlson has been saying that aliens are demons. That one of the aliens scratched him in his bed. He said it was a demon, but aliens are demons. And that his Pentagon friend said that the aliens who are demons made deals with the government, which means Democrats, which means progressives. So again, aliens are, if anything, angels for atheists to believe in, but the alien invasion itself may represent this one world system where, because in all the movies, when the aliens arrive, what happens? Mankind unites. What do all the presidents say? Like Reagan, he's like, well, if aliens showed up, we would all unite against the common threat. So the common threat thing is the purpose to it. The narrative is the common threat that unites us all: climate change, misinformation, space junk, alien invasion. They have these scenarios that represent unifying mankind against something. It's like a unification scenario. So the alien invasion to me represents nothing more than the dissolution of nations in the embrace of a one world, no borders. And grays, of course, the synthesis of these poles, these left versus right, this bifurcated psyop. I think it's all designed eventually to lead to this unification. But it's not going to involve literal green men from Mars. Although I'm open to the possibility that there are underground bases like Truman shows, entire cities full of people who think they're on Mars, like brainwashed children raised in these simulations. Wouldn't shock me. I'm still debating if that's the case, because there was this CIA agent who claimed this to be true. I think his name was Mark Knight. He was the guy on InfoWars who said that there were children being kidnapped and they were being taken to Mars on a journey to be slaves. And NASA came out and they actually said that he was not telling the truth, that they don't actually have any slaves going to Mars. But the fact that NASA responded to it was somewhat conspicuous. But I thought, now I don't believe that there are any children being trafficked to like Mars literally, but it wouldn't surprise me if they were being trafficked to some place, I don't know, perhaps beneath Las Vegas. Woods Bear says, you think the entire crowd of J6 were actors? No, I would say this. I would say look at Woo's News' work. I would ask you first, do you think, like what percentage would you say? Just based on looking at it. Because I can understand, it's a huge crowd, right? It looks like there's no way they could all be actors. But one thing that Woo's News really shows in his breakdown of J6 is that Trump's given the speech at the Ellipse. And while he's giving the speech, the so-called riots begin. It's a 45-minute walk from the Ellipse to the Capitol. So the action was already going on. It was a closed movie set, like 9/11. And what Woo's News showed is that anyone who wasn't part of it were immediately more or less outgrouped. So it was a closed movie set. There were real people there, but the people who participated in the insurrection itself were actors. It was like nobody was arrested, like legitimately, in my opinion. Ashley Babbitt didn't die. In fact, if you think Ashley Babbitt died, then that's a low information belief. You haven't looked into the evidence suggesting it was a hoax. Specifically, the jump cut in the edit, and aside from the jump cut, the squib, major squib failure. Oh no, it was not Robert Knight. I'm sorry, it was Robert Steele. Ex-CIA Robert Steele is the one who said, "This might strike your listeners as way out there, but we believe there's a colony on Mars populated by children who were kidnapped into space 20 years ago. 90% of NASA missions are secret, I've been told by high-level engineers. So there you go. NASA says there are no humans on Mars, says Guy Webster. There are active rovers. There's a rumor going around, but there are no humans. So NASA had to come out and clarify that there aren't any humans on Mars. Yeah, but are there humans on the underground Truman Show Mars base? Mars Village, exactly. Gondola Wish says the elite are not as powerful as you think. Yes, they are. They absolutely are. They controlled your mind until you figured out fakery. They control the minds of the multitudes. They got billions of people to believe all their lies and do on a daily basis. They shape society in every way. 1984 was a horror story, a dystopia, but now everybody self-surveils. They use social media. It's like a mind-reading device from the perspective of the elite. They can read our minds. We're totally controlled by an invisible, monolithic government that nobody can even see. Nobody's immune to it. Everybody's programmed. It's been in control since before any of us were born. The conqueror writes history, and they write, and this is a truism, but our history is written day by day with fake news. The idea that they're not powerful is absurd. What happened in 2020? They gaslight us every day en masse, and there's nothing that can be done about it. They are incontestable. It is literally a power elite. The idea that they're not powerful is just cope. People tell me, don't call them elite. It's like, why not? Why not? The beginning of wisdom is to call things by their right names. Call the brainwashed, brainwashed. Call the power elite, the believers, the knowers, the programmed, the programmers, the deprogrammed. We have to use accurate terminology if we want to have any level of situational awareness. And if you haven't seen Woo's News, I suggest you do. You don't have enough information to say January 6th was real. We have enough information to call it fake. And this is important because if you believe the story of J6, you're deep in the matrix. You might as well believe the official story of 9/11. Like it's that significant of a worldview bender. So if you want to live in their news-bent reality, believe in their contemporary myths. I choose not to, but I have information. I'm an informed non-believer. So again, Woo's News, W-O-O-Z, Woo's News. Everything wrong with the Capitol Hill riots in 21 minutes. If you haven't seen it, I'm just going to spam a link. Everything wrong with the Capitol shooting in 21 minutes. This is on BitChute. So I'm going to put a link here on my notes, and I'll make sure I send it out when I put the archives. Everyone should watch this. It's like mandatory watching. Because you would be operating under a false presumption if you thought J6 was real. You would believe the martyrs. And you would also be in error if you believe that Trump was really shot at. Anyway, thanks for joining. We will continue this conversation tomorrow. This is Dawn of a New Day, One-Eyed Jack, and the Murder Hornets. Sign up for the newsletter, ipr.monster, archives.
Put some ketchup on his head.